Smartwatch militiaman. That's my PornHub model and Twitch TV name. Keep all the implied consent to the leads company. Good job, 300 pages. Which you get implied consent to as a member. Right to work state means full self-employment rights. It means that if we use a leads company, we're using them to make sure that all our members have agreed to all of our rights, and then they understand who makes all the terms of service, that all terms of service, all agreements, all waivers are all implied as consenting to when you become a member. This also means you must identify yourself as a member if asked by the business to confirm that you in fact have membership. Anyone who's ever been to a club or any such knows this. Now, bouncers, everything else, they're out if you're not a member. We pay 20% to our leads companies to make sure that everyone that we talk business with, I mean, we're in business. We can deny service at any time. It means you have to respect us and our gear, as is the letter of the law for self-employment rights. Literally says our gear and us. We separate our working space from our client space. You have to respect that separation. A lot like a bus driver puts that line on the floor, that little bar on the back of their seat. People will come up there, stand over it, lean over their shoulder to get their face in the fan because they have no AC. You don't want to do that. Their working space, the client space are separate for a reason. I watch them pick people up by the shoulders and throw them out. And then just hold it out and drop it from like 4 feet up in the air. They have to tap that sign. You need to be off that business. Well, they open that door to let you walk out. Otherwise, they're going to throw you out. You see thousands of YouTube videos of bus drivers. They tap that sign. Yeah, you have entered the working space. You see people try that with shops. They're in there welding. Okay, they wonder what they look out there and say they're blind. And it's like, you know what? They're welding. They didn't say they got welders or anything like that. It said it's a working space except for the client space. They put some magazines, a couple comfy chairs in there. Well, that's it. They separated their working space from their client space. Most of this stuff's pretty simple, except that the members are responsible for making everyone else fully aware of all 300 pages of the agreement that they take with any leads companies, so that if they try to get any rights for any non-members, they know that they have to identify themselves to us so that we can contact the member, get a description, and this means height, eye color, hair color, weight. If the member does not answer, they're refusing to give a name or identify themselves, and they let themselves in. They don't ask. Law says you can't just let yourself into a business. You have to top business first. Identify yourself as a member. So you just let yourself in, and you've already broken the law there. It's trespassing. It becomes aggravated trespassing. You don't identify yourself as a member. So implied consent means that everything we get from the leads company, they understand the membership, they understand respect us, respect our gear, respect our business, respect the separation of working space and client space. But this applies to everyone that they might actually try to use their membership for as well. And the culpable state of mind is that they are responsible for that and equally prosecutable should anything happen. The whole point of Leads Company is that we know that all of our clients respect us in our business, and we go in with that implied consent to all of that. That's what we have the Leads Company for. Now, some people, data science or sales, are trying to get information and make sure that everyone understands hundreds of pages of this stuff that they don't want to go over with them each over and over as they talk business. They want the Leads Company to go over that so they can just talk business. They might pay 1%. We pay over 20%. We expect to get our money's worth. This isn't complicated stuff because we've literally got hundreds of state laws and right to work states. It means it's kind of important to us. It's like the Super Bowl, only bigger. Quite literally, it's in excess of the largest self-employment unions in the history of the United Nations. Most of them are in markets where they use motorcycles. That represents the majority of their vehicles. May have drifted a little there. Oh, wait. That stuff's pretty simple. It ain't complicated. It has never been complicated. Nothing about it is complicated. Now, there are schemers that we have seen. By court opinions, they'll say they didn't know the details. Bitch ass. Like, no. They do that science like, they want to hear what do you want to know the details. They want feelings and opinions. Tried the same thing when they cost mom $300,000 after they tried to kill her. She had $1 million policy which should have covered her. They falsified her report, ignored all of her rights, and tried to have her pay out of pocket. She's still paying that $300,000 out of pocket. Same ones listing the same attempts. Knew they were gonna. You can see all the schemers used out the $40,000. $300,000 in surgeries. Her eyes popped out of her skull and tore her optic nerves out. She was blind in one eye. She was in a coma for 4 days. She's a Montessori teacher, like tens of thousands of others. She was a Montessori teacher for years. She was the assistant. She was the teacher. So they take that Montessori teacher and them stuff pretty serious. She also knows thousands of others. go over some of that. About section 9. PornHubModel account. I admit the architecture here is pretty. Unfortunately, all I'm seeing is sticker prices.
Hazard reported ahead, so how about an icebreaker? What's one way you deal with obstacles?
I'm a folk hero. Many a son and daughter of many a Montessori teacher. Tens of millions of us. We are the sons and daughters of liberty. We'll kill for it. We do so as folk heroes. We kill anytime, kill anywhere we want, we drive anywhere we want, we drive anytime. We fuck along the way, we live along the way. Kind of like nomads. We go where we're needed. After 200 cities, 30 states. We drive, we kill, we fuck along the way, and we live. Like the founding fathers themselves. Let me tell the schemers. Well, Washington, D.C.'s ever been. Thomas Jefferson killed them. George Washington, he tarred thousands of lawmakers, lit the judges on fire, and dragged them around the city halls until they were dead. Grace Jones was killed 5,000 military in an hour and killed City Hall. Gracious Honey exhibit, except for the hall. And the rest of the government was cool with that. Because we heard that more than a dozen cities and 100,000 military that same week were not cool with that. That was 3 dozen dead city halls. Alright, 10 million military dead over the next 2 decades. His wife, the first one in North America to own land. Women didn't own land, not even Roosevelt's wife owned land. You know how a woman owns land? Most stuff says all men created equal. You start killing judges, lawmakers, law enforcers. It is not gender specific. Abraham Lincoln gave full dominion over Congress and the courts, called at any time. You have one civil war. He knew what it was. A bunch of schemers, and he wasn't having it. Personally stayed in Scott County, Tennessee, separated the state into 3 regions. They killed the North and the South. All the politicians said, y'all are part of the South. They laughed at them. Killed them right there. We have 55,000 who go out. Made a lot of noise, got rowdy. Yeah, the battlefields are in the cities. Oh, they know. We're for the military away from the battlefields. Well, that's just what they did. The thing of it was, you had only 55,000.
Hazard reported ahead, so how about
independent nation states? But they just couldn't figure out why when they would send millions through, they'd die in a matter of minutes. Well, turns out there were hundreds of independent nation states. But Scott County was who they had as one of their key points. This meant that if you don't make nice with them, you don't need to hear from or find out who the others are. And they never did, so by the time Scott County rejoined, none of the other independent nation states ever did. There are dozens of them. They're all over Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina. I mean, they're everywhere. Well, after killing a few million military, people start making a bit of a folk hero of Free State Jones and begging him to come help their areas. They write him letters. They offer him land. See, what made Free State Jones and his wife unique? You know why his wife was the first one in North America on land? Because she freed her slaves. Not by decree, but by passing out millions of rifles. Over 40% of their slaves were armed. Instead of building a slave house by the mansion, you'd have anywhere from 10 to 100,000 slaves for a family of 5 on a plantation. Congress would say, they're not free. them, they'd say, I don't know, that's a lot of guns. They look pretty fucking free. Why don't you go ask them? I'll wind up dead. You shot them right there. See, slaves are property. Now, you can't prosecute property, and you are legally required to reimburse should you damage property. So all the other plantations, they got a problem with all these slaves out these guns, and maybe they turn on them. No, I don't think they will. Well, a lot of them were sneaking on their plantations, trying to destroy them. The slaves killed every one of them. They'd rotate in 3 shifts. That's how first, second, and third shifts began. All their cabins were built along the property lines, about 500 feet between them. They had little candles with a mirrored plate behind them, reflect towards the other cabins. You ever seen the walls, like the Great Wall of China, when they light in the torches? You know what happens, right? They go out there. Within the first year, a couple 100,000 of them wound up dead. Not one slave died. Not one member of Free State Shell's army out of those 5,000 military killed died. Got all the military's marching numbers. Now, total number of slaves just for the 40% that were arming them was over 2 million. Those are just the ones that had guns. So the military had 5,000 guns, and when they got a dozen counties together and a dozen of y'all, they had 100,000 guns. Well, outnumbered 20 to 1 for every road for more than 100 miles if they stood shoulder to shoulder. The military come down those roads because they got all the supply, and they all wind up dead. They let them go 10, 20 miles past them, and then they just come up on that ridge. One round, every member of the military died right the fuck there. There'd be a single gunshot. Millions would rise up. 2 million rounds be fired. You get back down, that'd be it. I'd say basic traffic tends to be a little more priority than most up this way. Everyone's doing about 85. Oh my. So they all come down from the higher elevations, Mississippi mountains, North Carolina mountains. Mississippi's beneath Tennessee geographically, but it's got some high elevations. Well, if you know that the Mississippi River leads right into the Tennessee River, you know where it leads to the Tennessee River. Somewhere in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Kentucky. It's in millions of rafts with wagons. Idea them, and that night they just go along, clear off all the shores. And nobody see or hear a thing. The thing of it was, all these plantations, they're making 10, 20 times more than what the plantations could produce. The funny thing is, they'd buy double the amount of slaves they had, expand. But the day those slaves arrive, all the others would disappear. They figured they were runaways. Had more slaves moving through there than a train station. In fact, they had their own railroad going. FedEx's logistics center, only one in existence, Memphis, Tennessee. Controls all the hand-delivered packages, which account for exactly down to the pound, the billions of pounds of way station freight from loaded semi-trucks and vehicles and many others that come in on the way stations in Tennessee. And they go out in little 1.5 to 5 pound boxes. It's almost like someone got a few thousand in ground smelters together and decided to do a little recycling. Now, what they filled with them, no one knows, because those labels being hand delivered and printed out at the FedEx Logistics Center make them all confidential once hand delivered. You got no receiving address, just a destination address. For the most part, no nothing. About 2 million of them would disappear every couple months. Lincoln was grinning. Scott County saved the Union. See, the odd thing about the Civil War, it wasn't fought on battlefields. Less than 10% of it was fought on battlefields. All the marching orders, all the military, only 10% died on battlefields. 5% died on roads, 85% died in the streets and the city halls. More were killed in the streets and the city halls. The Civil War killed more than every battlefield of 250 years, from the Revolutionary War all the way up to the 250th centennial. And that's not including what it killed on battlefields during the Civil War. Killed double what the World War did, with every country dying for decades. Year one. How is it so effective? There were no street addresses, no identities, and they had no idea where all this killing was coming from. Whoever it was, they're nomadic. Nah, Free States Jones would never say anything, nor would his wife. North Carolina, South Carolina, well, got a little smirk going, but they ain't saying much. But to this day, there are 183 states, and there are more than 100 independent nation states. Now, independent nation state is a very simple thing. It's not complicated. It means they believe in essential liberty, what Benjamin Franklin, what all the founding fathers believed in. Going 59, 58 to 75, 20 below. Any of my side jokes not going to end So, the Patriot Party, the Revolutionary War, Pre-Stage Jones, George Washington, they all have in common. They all fought their way out of the militaries that trained them. And then they fought against the West Virginians. Oh my gosh. See, they didn't just say, all right, we fought our way out and they're out. No, they go into other militaries and then they fight their way out. They literally go in like they're signing up and kill their way out from the inside. No one knew who they were, and they just go through there killing everyone. Called them turncoats. They go in there, and they kill everybody. George Washington was a turncoat, so he figured, hey, what if we had millions of turncoats? So essential liberty means no one has a higher claim to your industriousness. He believed this because of Benjamin Franklin's advice to a tradesman, which he self-published in 1748. Hundreds of thousands of copies were made. There's a couple dozen pages of some of the most influential literature ever created. Most people, they remember the simpler stuff. You know, if it comes to going to a general store that's 1,000 miles away, fill up with something that you could sell in a week, or going and getting those same goods local from an outfitter that you can get for half the price every 100 miles and sell 10 times as much of. Well, they ask OpenAI, it'll say, why you want to know about Benjamin Franklin destroying the trade routes? Well, we checked. He never destroyed or damaged a single one. People just stopped using them. Now, they were all still there. That's a word it'll use, destroy. But he said time is money. Now, you want to travel 1,000 miles to carry maybe a few thousand pounds? And all that traveling and that's just more money. Or you want to get this stuff locally, have the cost, and help some of your local outfitters. Well, they decided they're going to help the local outfitters. Well, Parliament didn't like that. The first banned book in history. Well, Benjamin Franklin didn't like that. Now, he's been writing this thing for years. Most successful book ever created. So in 1752, he got together with some of the other businesses. He ran 100 printing presses because he figured out rather than running one and transporting 1,000 miles, he'd take his own advice. Like the outfitters, he started printing presses in every area. He used trains and telegraphs and all that stuff well into the 1800s and in the 1900s, and they still make copies of it to this day, independent and on his original printing press with the original printing press plates. You want to know what else those printing press plates made? Here's a hint. Millions of private museums, thousands of federal buildings. It's got 56 signatures on it. And they have to use his original printing presses because it knows things that can hold the original printing press plates. 10% of them, he said with George Washington. George Washington said, you keep the other 90% going, and we'll make sure that you are federally funded without Chamber of Commerce, without courts, because Andrew Jackson believed that if the Fed were to try to cut that funding, and it'd be court opinions they'd use to do it, saying it was a different time and here's what happened then. So every single copy has to be made off of those original printing press plates. Kisses them all. It's like waving advice to a tradesman back and forth. Use a few quotes here and there, and it ain't time is money. It's not industriousness. You can see the vein just pop out of their foreheads. And they've had some right there. And these are during national anthem, so I'll ask a question, and you will see their get nosebleeds. You can see the veins in their foreheads and their eyes burst. Hey, no, but hey, it's all they can try to keep it from being soldiers. They can't stop them from making it. And I'll just say that the press conference, they'll storm off of there, falling up. It's kind of hilarious that after more than 250 years, it's still one of the most banned books in all of history. Even Isaac Asimov said that there's nothing he felt genuine danger reading. And he believed, a banned book is a book that should be read before you parody it or look it up or like an original copy of the Dead Sea Scrolls or so he was a big advocate of, be able to go over all this stuff. But that's about the only time he ever felt he was reading something truly dangerous. Yet it's one of his favorites. Wasn't just about industriousness. It was about essential liberty. There's liberty and there's essential liberty. Essential liberty is necessary to secure any liberty, because you can't have it without it. Which means every uprising, every revolution, every revolutionary war requires essential liberty in order to be successful. Essential liberty, industriousness. You need to be able to be self-employed, to run your own businesses, or they're going to try to financially destroy you. "56 self-employment union reps kept tens of thousands of them industrious, even as all of Parliament tried to get rid of them." Liberty, the feeling that you're actually fighting for something, killing for something. Is it lower level, simple things, song, music, assembling, speaking your minds? Sure. But essential liberty needs to have something to fight and to kill for. Then something fatiguing to the point of just you have to have liberty or essential liberty will not survive. You have to have industriousness or essential liberty will not survive. You have to have life or essential liberty will not survive. So those are three of primary components of essential liberty: industriousness, liberty, and life. Well, all the founding fathers had that. They killed for it. But he defined liberty so simply that everyone, and we're talking a population where 95% can't read or understand anything, they're completely illiterate. And they understood this the first time. All the West Virginians, not even 1% were literate. George Washington was. Anyone who's trying to get into the British was. Most West Virginians were not. They didn't really like people that did try to get into all that. But like George Washington. See, young George Washington, and he lost his girl, his career, and most of it, they made fun of him while he was trying to get the girl. They made fun of him while he was trying to get the career. It wasn't until he stopped trying to be part of the British that they actually started to respect him. He became a West Virginian. These their liberties mean that no one has a higher claim to anything that's any part of essential liberty. Your industriousness, your liberty, or your life. This way, at any time, you have essential liberty. You have the highest claim to these things. No one else does. Like she might be gonna ask me. Going about the inside. So, essential liberty means that neither country, nor a court, nor government, nor military, doesn't matter if it's Parliament, British, entirely English made the concentration camps. From the 10th century all the way up, that was the English. Now, the British made Parliament, but the West Virginians, they weren't going to have any attempts on liberty from either. Like, well, you part and have the honor of fighting. Play there and whoop that ass. Man, you ain't never seen someone whoop ass the way the founding fathers did. Hey, anyone here work for the guard military? Like, no. Well, they whoop some ass. So liberty was important. only way to have liberty, George Washington said, you can love your country or you can love your government, but you cannot love both. And he'd been on both sides of it. He wanted to be part of the British government. He thought it was going to happen. And eventually, West Virginians, he came to realize he was just fighting for someone else's money. That everything was just a money grab. And that's all it was. They were fighting and dying, not for country right or for any of that, but for a government that tried to claim everything around it and simply laughed at people for going along with it. He said you will be forced to choose between them, and having chosen West Virginians, he wouldn't have it any other way. That mean you can't respect both, but if it comes to killing, you can only love one, and you will have to choose. And that goes for government as well. But the government, it doesn't matter. Eventually, they will have to choose. So, liberty is merely one of three components of essential liberty. But it's the icing. Industriousness and life, that's the cake.